Benvenuto in questo nuovo episodio di Founders Espresso. Oggi parleremo di una startup dello spazio, ma non di razzi o turismo orbitale, bensì di ordine nel caos. Vedremo come Cosmic sta cercando di rendere più sostenibile e più sicuro lo spazio intorno alla Terra. Ogni giorno le agenzie spaziali monitorano le orbite dei satelliti e ricevono migliaia di segnalazioni di possibili collisioni. Il problema? Il 90% di essi sono falsi allarmi, un rumore che paralizza e mette a rischio l'unico segnale davvero importante, quello reale. Ed è qui che entra in gioco Cosmic, la startup cofondata da Gaia Roncalli. Il suo software SAFE, che sta per System to Avoid Fatal Events, riesce a filtrare oltre il 70% dei falsi allarmi, permettendo così agli operatori di concentrarsi solo su ciò che conta davvero. In meno di un anno Cosmic è passata da 3 a 13 persone, con un'idea nata in un laboratorio a un prodotto reale già testato da operatori satellitari in Europa. In questa puntata parleremo di come Gaia e il suo team hanno costruito una startup da zero, delle scelte difficili e dei pivot che hanno definito la loro traiettoria, ma anche delle curiosità, delle letture e delle lezioni apprese lungo il percorso. Ciao, sono Andrea. Se sei nuovo sul canale, Founders Espresso è il format in cui davanti a un caffè andiamo a scoprire gli aspetti reali e pratici dell'imprenditoria. Qui non troverai solo storia da copertina, ma anche campioni nascosti che passo dopo passo ogni giorno costruiscono la propria azienda. Quindi se ti interessa il mondo delle startup e dell'imprenditoria, iscriviti al canale per rimanere aggiornato. E ora prendi il tuo espresso e preparati a scoprire come Cosmic sta riportando silenzio, sostenibilità e chiarezza nello spazio. Okay, Gaia, thank you for being here and welcome to Founders Espresso.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So first question, crucial question, which one do you prefer, espresso or a cappuccino?
Espresso, always an espresso with no sugar at all.
Because I usually like cappuccino, but a cold cappuccino, so it's a rare thing in Italy. You know, in Italy
Definitely.
they are violent against you if you're not an espresso guy.
Too traditionalist. I agree.
Gaia, can you provide a one-sentence description of your startup and share your long-term vision for its future?
Yes, of course. So at Cosmic, what we do is that we develop software for satellites. So we are specifically focusing on space tech and on how to help the satellite operators, so the people who are actually managing the satellites once they're up there in space. And as a company, we focus on really being sustainable. Our first product is actually a software to avoid collisions between satellites, which we might talk more about it later, but it's very important for space sustainability, which is kind of a crucial topic in space right now. And yeah, our long-term vision is really to make sure that we're able to provide microservices related to software for satellite operators, such as services for flight dynamics, navigation, and of course space safety. And yeah, we're a team of aerospace engineers and software developers developing that.
Amazing, super interesting because it catch this kind of long-term value, because of course the space is just at the beginning of this expansion, especially from a private perspective. So I totally see your kind of vision in this sense. Do you have any numbers that you can share with me? Clients, grow? I'm curious to know it.
Yeah, so just to give you an idea, Cosmic was born in the Netherlands in 2023, and then we opened our headquarters in Italy in 2024, so basically a year ago. And in 1 year, we went from 3 co-founders to 13 people in the company, and we went from having just one algorithm that we're trying to patent to having a full-on product that we released a few months ago. And right now we have multiple beta testers. So right now products is basically being used by different satellite operation companies. And specifically, we just announced a partnership now with a company, a Dutch company actually, that has quite a few satellites. In terms of number and growth, so right now I can say that the growth, well, it goes really fast when you're really at the beginning, right? Because it goes from like 0 clients and no products to having 1 product out in the market and having, 5 or more beta testers with actually more than 50 in the pipeline. So
Congratulations.
It's going, yeah. Thank you.
Nice. Can you tell me what makes your startup unique in your opinion?
Yeah. So I think that what makes us unique is really the blend between the space related to space tech, actually. So everything related to satellites and the expertise we have in satellites with the expertise that we acquired with our team in software development. Specifically, we managed to find people who really develop skills in software in other fields. And what we're doing is really like blending together things that come from different fields, which can be, like, for example, gaming, can be food deliveries. So things that really kind of look outside of the sector of space. But we bring these kind of capabilities to space together with our space expertise. And I think that this is what really makes us stand out, because you can bring a lot of innovation when you put together different, different sectors and different
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was this co-founder I've interviewed. It's called Oliver. He told me if you want to have an amazing and super innovative output, you need to put people that have this kind of innovative approach. So as you
Definitely.
said, super different background, but bring together in a room with also experts in the field, they can make exceptional things.
Definitely. The brainstormings are way more interesting when we don't all think, kind of in the same way.
Absolutely. Cool. Gaia, how did you start your startup and what was your initial budget?
Yeah. So we started our startup. So we're three actually at the beginning. So it was me and my two co-founders, Benedetta and Iman. So the three of us are space engineers. We met at ESA, the European Space Agency. We were either working or doing trainerships there. And we were all working on, kind of different fields, but all related because they were all applicable to space sustainability. So my co-founder Benedetta, she was working in the Clean Space Office, which is basically the office at the agency that really works on sustainability for space missions, from like the design and production of the satellites till the end of its life. I had been working on space weather, which is not the weather that we're kind of used to see on TV, but it's more about, like solar storms and how they impact satellites and their orbit. And it's also something that is really important when it comes to space traffic management, which is what we do now actually with our first product. And then we had Iman, who was working on more like guidance of the satellite, guided navigation and control. Again, a very important topic. So the three of us kind of met. We were all passionate about space sustainability. We all wanted to do something about it. We had different expertise in the sense that Iman had already worked in a venture capital. So she had more of the fundraising expertise, while I had more expertise, like in doing product discovery, because that's what I had been doing for more than a year when we met, actually. And Benedetta had all of the technical expertise, and we kind of came together and realized that we could do something about space sustainability, and we could actually like sell a product. And this is how it all started, basically. And about the initial budget, that was an interesting question, because that's kind of crucial right at the beginning. So in our case, actually, we immediately got into an incubator that was an European Space Agency incubator, ISAPEC, in the Netherlands. And it was basically some of our, I would say our first budget with 50K. And on top of that, we also had support from our university, TU Delft, also in the Netherlands, which had given us a few €1,000, which at the beginning, just to get started, is actually more than enough.
Absolutely. Interesting. I'm curious to know, how did you identify the problem? So you were telling me before you started with this algorithm idea, and how did you develop, and what steps did you take to validate then the new idea?
Yes. So I think this is a crucial part, and one thing actually, which is kind of a backstory, which I believe it's quite telling, because it's typical of startups, is that we actually pivoted at the beginning of eCosmic. So as I told you, we're all passionate about sustainability from the beginning, but at first we kind of had the idea of doing life cycle assessment, LCA, which basically means kind of assessing, again, like sustainability indexes on space missions, so still related to space, still sustainability, but it was more of, like giving reports on sustainability. This is something we're super passionate about. Everybody was saying, this is amazing. You absolutely have to do it. We would love seeing more sustainability in space, because I mean, let's be honest, which company would say that they don't want to be more sustainable, right? Like,
nowadays,
but then
especially.
one really, really important thing was to distinguish between, you know, like all of the applause and the encouragement and what actually is really having a product that sells. So people could be encouraging, people can be supportive, but paying is a whole other deal, right? So this is something we did at the beginning, actually. Like when we had this idea of doing life cycle assessment, we spent many months, more than 6 months, interviewing people. So what I did at the time was basically going to as many conferences as I could, at least in Europe, so with a lower budget, and just ask people what was their opinion. One great book about that is called The Mom Test. And it's all about how to ask questions without biasing the person in front of you. Because you don't want to ask questions such as like, do you like sustainability? Do you care about it? Because of course you're going to say yes.
You find this amazing idea, this one that I'm telling you now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want to develop this and I'm super passionate about it. Do you think it's a great idea? Nobody's going to tell you no, crush your dreams, right?
Absolutely.
So it was super important actually to make sure that the way we're asking questions and the people we're asking questions to were giving us real honest feedback. And this is actually what brought us to Pivot. So at first we were saying, let's do a life cycle assessment. And we realized everybody's enthusiastic about sustainability. Nobody will pay for that. And I think we were right in doing that. So that's when we kind of understood that it couldn't be our product. It couldn't be an idea for a startup. And that's when we pivoted and we went more into space traffic management, which means really like dealing with potential collisions in space, how to move satellites to avoid space debris or other satellites. This is still related to sustainability because the idea is to avoid collisions that could provoke thousands more debris, which then go to pollute space, because unfortunately in space debris, they can stay forever there, or at least for like decades. So it's really important to avoid that. And this actually is something that we went into because it's also a need for companies. And if you develop a software that automates part of it, you put together the sustainability part with the cost savings part. And that's when people actually like go and pay for your product, right? So yeah, basically this is how it kind of started and how we validated the product, like asking a lot of questions and just going out there honestly and asking the right people the right questions.
Absolutely. It's super interesting, this concept of when people tell you like, I like your product, and when they actually buying, it's a totally different story. It's interesting because of course you need to start from this kind of people that they say the likers, because you need to gather feedback, and then you need to find your lovers. So they want
definitely, and at the real beginning, when you still are unknown and when maybe you don't even have a company, it's actually almost easier, because the amazing thing is that people don't know what you do, and if you don't tell them, they just think that maybe, you know, like you're a student or someone passionate about something, but they don't really know whether you already have a product and a team, and that if you're trying to sell something. So they're absolutely unbiased, and I think that that's the best moment actually to do like user research and discovery. Yes.
Can you tell me about more, like, so you switch from this kind of LC model, let's say assessment, and then you started to develop this kind of software to manage. Can you tell me more about this side? So thank you.
So how it went is, well, basically, as I told you, like we spent many months asking questions. What we realized was that even though there was an interest for life cycle assessment and sustainability, the interest was just an interest. That's it. There was no money put in it. There was no willingness really to change. And at the same time, it's also truth that when it comes to life cycle assessment, it's kind of a consulting, and it's not so easy to do consulting when you're so young. So there were also other barriers, you know, to market. And so this was really what convinced us to say, like, okay, this is not something that we can do. At the same time, though, like at that point, we were all either still in university or starting to work. And we had all worked on thesis projects that were related to space traffic management. And particularly, there was one algorithm that had come out of one of the theses that was really performing well. Like from the initial validation and testing, it seemed to be way above the state of the art. And that's when we kind of got the idea of, okay, wait a second, we have this, which of course it's very academia focused. It's like a university research, but let's see if actually it would make sense to apply that on an operational environment and if it could actually sell. So the pivot was made by both starting to work more on this algorithm and at the same time continuing to ask questions. And at that point, we got a really positive feedback when it came to the potential users. And at the same time, we immediately tried to find ways to collaborate with at least one company to try the software in an operational environment and validate even further. And this happened actually with Telespazio in the end. So in 2023, we validated the software with Telespazio with a real satellite that they were operating from the Italian Space Agency. And this really gave us, like the kick to say, okay, this works, it has this performance. And it is a product that people would actually buy.
Absolutely. Amazing that follows this kind of for me at least, this ideal journey of how it should be the research. You start to study research, and then you find something that then has a super strong impact from also an economic perspective, and entering this kind of in this economic world. Amazing.
Definitely.
Gaia, if your startup were an animal, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good one. Oof. Can I choose an animal that doesn't really exist?
Absolutely.
Like a phoenix? A phoenix, I would say.
No?
Because I like the fact that it's kind of like, I feel like eCosmic to me is kind of like a factory of ideas where some ideas are born, they grow, and then sometimes because of market, because of resources, whatever, they just burn basically. And then from there, from the ashes, something else is reborn. So I like the idea of a phoenix. I would say that.
When you say phoenix, the first image that I have, I don't know why, but I see Harry Potter. That the scene of the thing, super famous, super catchy also. So I just review this kind of frame in my mind.
I like the reference. I'm a huge fan. So.
Gaia, how did you met your co-founder? So before you were telling me from the university, but I'm really curious to know what made you decide they were the right partner for this journey.
Yeah. So I met Benedetta first in my master, actually, because we were studying together. We worked on quite a few projects together, not just for our studies, but also outside of the studies in, teams, for example, to build a lunar rover. We're both system engineers. We worked on different initiatives together tied to space sustainability. We participated to a NASA challenge, we did quite a few things together. And I knew already that I was working really well with her. We went through thick and thin, as you can say, together, also through COVID. So I felt like there was really, a respect and kind of also shared ideals and opinions with her, and priorities, which is important. And then we met Iman at ESA, so at the European Space Agency. Actually, I had met her even before in Paris at the International Astronautical Conference.
Nice.
And there we had talked quite a bit about what we were doing. We're really interested in the fact that she had more of the investor side, because she was working in Primo Space, which is a space-focused VC in Italy, which then actually also invested in eCosmic. And I think that was really interesting is that she had a different way of approaching problems, probably because of her background, which kind of challenged me. And I think also Benedetta, I can talk for her. And when we met again at the European Space Agency, we realized that we had, again, the same priorities, the same opinions on what's important and what we want to work on and what are, the driving forces for us. But again, she had a different way to think, and we thought that it could be extremely interesting to have her in the team, not just for her background, but also because, again, it's a continuous challenge when you have, people who like to really brainstorm, and she's one of these people. So we thought that it could be a perfect fit.
Nice. I like this kind of balance between complementarity in your different skill set, but also this kind of really this approach of challenging each other. So you need to be really, because I think there are different types of founders, of course, but you need to be a certain type of founder to really embrace this kind of continuous challenging between each other. So I really see that there are some founders that are same approach, super aligned together, super like same maybe same skill set also, and other situation in your case, for example, where you really have this kind of innovative mix. So you just challenge and need to be, of course, it's also it's not easy. Of course, I imagine that being always this kind of this approach of innovation, because challenges also brings you to innovation. It's not easy, of course.
But it makes it so much more interesting, honestly.
Absolutely.
As long as we're aligned on the bigger goals and bigger values, which I think is really important for co-founders. Being challenged and having different ideas, I think that this is what makes a company thrive.
Absolutely. Gaia, can you tell me a funny story in your entrepreneurial journey that you recall in your mind?
A funny story. Well, one related to the previous question, which I think is quite funny, is that the first time I met Iman, I thought that like she seemed extremely smart to me. And because she was working on guidance, navigation, and control, she's also an aerospace engineer. I tried kind of jokingly, half not, to hire her as an engineer in a Cosmic, which at the time didn't even really exist. But I thought, like, hey, do you want to work on the software? And she was like, no way. If I'm gonna join, I'm gonna be a co-founder. And like,
nice.
sometime later, this actually happened. But it was quite funny that the first time we tried to hire, I think we completely missed the point of like the kind of skill set that she had, and it's quite funny that in the end she said no, but she joined in a different way.
Yes, nice. In a certain way, you just test it, soft test of like
exactly
how to view this idea. Nice. Hey Gaia, who is your favorite entrepreneur, and what makes them stand out to you?
Okay, so maybe I might say Luca Rossettini, who is the CEO and founder of The Orbit, exactly. And I'm gonna say him just because, staying in the realm of space tech, I know what can be the challenges of founding a space tech company in Italy with the Italian ecosystem. He did that way before we did it with the Cosmic, when it was also not such an easy time, I think, for startups. And not that now it is easy, but it was definitely more difficult 10 years ago.
Easy industry, yeah.
Exactly. But he managed to do that. And also, I have to say, I really like the vision that they have, and the fact that even though you start with a vision that maybe seems sci-fi, because literally in our space, like a lot of times when a startup talks about what they want to achieve, it sounds like sci-fi, like space exploration, colonization, whatever. But I really love the fact that in his case, his vision has always been very, even though it seemed like, kind of impossible to achieve maybe for people who are not in the sector, it was still focused on having a sustainable economy in space, not about, just like randomly having fun and tourism in space and things like that. It was way more like, in my opinion, it had a deeper meaning. And he's achieving that. And he's achieving that by really, one thing that I really love is by finding step by step what can work, what is achievable maybe in the next, 1-2 years, selling it, but then at the same time developing the capabilities to actually go to this long-term vision, like achieve this long-term vision. And we're dealing with the same now, and it's not easy. And seeing him do it in a moment that was even less easy for startups, it's impressive. And also I met him personally, and he's always been wonderful. So I think he's a great entrepreneur.
Nice. Also, in trying to interview him, it's super hard because he has a full schedule for. Like he planned 6 months in advance, 1 year in advance. So I'm
not surprised. Hard. Yeah.
So, Gaia, imagine this situation. You wake up, the day starts off bad and keep getting worse, one setback after another. So it's a really terrible day. What's the phrase you tell yourself to keep going?
Sometimes I tell myself that because you commit a lot of mistakes when you're in a startup, because you are doing new stuff. So it's normal that you cannot always do the right thing. Sometimes I tell myself to remember that the main character to focus on is not the error, but the solution. So I think it's extremely important not to forget about the mistakes that we make. So in a bad day, maybe when you make mistakes, or you realize sometimes, like they're not so immediate. So sometimes you realize that maybe a decision you took like months ago actually was just a waste of time.
Okay.
It's important to say, okay, why did I make this mistake? What can I learn from it? But then just go further and find a solution and not focus just on the mistake. Because when you're an entrepreneur and you take decisions every day that can be considered high risk, if you only focus on the mistakes, on the uncertainty, you're never going to go anywhere, or at least you're not going to get there fast enough. So I think that this is important to keep in mind.
Interesting. And maybe also connected to this question, what's your most effective strategy for gathering customer feedback, and how has directly shaped your product development? So you were telling me before you started the hardcore customer feedback convention, physical events.
Mm-hmm. So we still do that. So in anytime we go to conferences or events, we really focus not just on sales, so getting new customers, but also on product discovery. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, so when it comes to the user that we already have, we have a very direct way of communicating with some of them. We have, like Slack channels in common, etc. And we do have meetings fairly often. We also do meet them in person at these kind of events, and we always continuously ask for feedback. At the same time, of course, you can also see how they use our product. So that also is quite telling from a technological point of view. But when it comes also to understanding what are the next steps, so what are the next features that we want to develop, or even products, it's extremely important to continue doing this, in a very unbiased way as much as possible. So again, if you are selling and you want to say, how amazing your product is, you're not going to do it in the same conversation in which you ask what they think of, just any kind of software or whatever kind of product discovery you want to do. And I think that this is really important. At the same time, I think that one thing that really helps when it comes to product discovery is not just talking with the users, but also talking with, the CFOs, or talking with the CEOs, or talking with the sector experts, talking with people who also see maybe the end users of the sector. So one thing that is important is to remember is that even though we're talking about space, the end users for this sector are not space related. Sometimes it's government, sometimes it's agriculture, it's telecommunications, so communication companies. So very often it's quite telling when you talk to these people and you understand how their market is going, to understand if more money is going to pour more upstream to the space market, right? So it's really an analysis of the market. In the case of space, it's also important to analyze the geopolitics, even more so now with the recent changes in the US. And I think that putting all of this together with more of the bottom-up approach of interviewing, like the end users, if you put those together, they give you kind of an idea of the direction you can go into.
Absolutely. It's super interesting, this kind of approach of being attentive or being worried about telling your product to the people that are going to use, and the people that are maybe going to take decision on your product, or on the use of your product. So it's interesting because you have different stakeholders, of course. You have the actual users, but usually they are not taking the final decision of acquiring maybe your software. There are other people. So it's interesting, and also, of course, challenging to move around this kind of people. Interesting.
Definitely. But then once again, it's about not getting biased, right? Because you might talk with an end user and they might tell you, this thing, it's such a pain for me. I have to waste so much time every day on that. Like, it would be amazing to have a solution. But then you talk with, like the person in charge of like the budget, and they're like, even if this guy spends, like 1 hour per day on that, it doesn't cost us that much. So we wouldn't really buy a product for that.
Absolutely. It's for me, the customer feedback and all this research, it's always tricky, because you need to be very careful to understand the type of customer, the type of feedback, the type of stuff and development that you want to do based on that. Because
definitely,
I've told this kind of old says several times on this podcast, but as Henry Ford said, no, if you go and ask people what they want, they would say faster horses, not actual car. So there is kind of tricky approach that you need always to remind.
Yeah, it's a challenging job, I would say, but extremely interesting. You also learn so much about so many different like jobs that it really enriches you as a person, I think.
Eccoci arrivati alla fine di questo primo episodio dove abbiamo visto come è nata iCosmic, ma questa è solo la prima metà della storia. Nel prossimo episodio vedremo come si costruisce un prodotto che deve funzionare in situazioni di emergenza, come si raccolgono i feedback e come si trasformano dei beta tester a clienti paganti. E vedremo anche i grow hack che stanno funzionando per Gaia e quali errori non commetterebbe di nuovo. Se ti interessa capire come si costruisce un'azienda sul campo, allora iscriviti al canale per non perderti la parte 2. Ci vediamo al prossimo episodio. Ciao!